In this video, we are going to model all the cash expenditure for Yum Foods Limited. If we look into the financial statements, we notice that the company has certain cash expenses including raw materials, power and fuel, employee costs, and the rest. In addition, the company has certain non-cash expenditures such as depreciation. We'll come to depreciation a little later on. At this juncture, we'll focus on these cash expenses. Let us first see what does our problem say about the assumptions for cash expenses. The problem says that severe competition is going to put pressure on the gross margins, which are expected to decline by 100 basis points in each year between 2013 to 2015. Now this becomes critical in our raw material forecast because if gross margin is declining, that's because raw material cost is going up. So first let's catch the information pertaining to gross margin change. So in our assumption sheet, we'll add a line to show change in gross margin. So we've been told it's going to decline by 100 basis points, which means we're going to type in 100. 100 basis points is essentially change of 1%. So in our financial statements, we're going to say gross margin expected for 2013 is going to be gross margin for 2011 plus change in gross margin divided by 10 to the power 4. So that's 63.8%. We know that gross margin is gross profit divided by sales. So if gross margin is 63.8%, gross profit is going to be sales multiplied by the gross margin, which is 886.6, and that means raw material cost would be gross margin minus the sales, which is a negative 503.2. We have modeled raw material cost to arrive at gross profit. Now let's focus on rest of the cash expenses. We'll go to the problem to see what the company is talking about. The problem mentions that supported by increase in size of operation, the cash operating cost as a percentage of sales is expected to decline by 50 basis points in 2013 and by 25 in 2014 and 2015. You would notice that this particular problem does not give any breakup of cost, even though our financial statement has a breakup of cost, and sometimes it does happen. As an analyst building a financial model, sometimes we may have to restructure the model so that we can take it in line with the kind of assumptions we could get. Given that all we know is the impact on overall cash operating cost excluding raw materials, it might not add great value to forecast each of these costs separately. Rather, what we would do is group the individual cash expenses together, and in addition we shall focus on the total operating cash expenses excluding the raw material cost. So we have the data, but we have grouped it, and we would focus only on operating cash expenses because that's what our analysis is focusing on. It's not focusing on each individual component. Now let's capture assumption pertaining to operating cash expenses in our assumption sheet. So it's a change in operating cash expenses. The problem mentions a decline of negative 50, so we'll capture that. In our financial statements, again we'll mention operating cash expenses percentage of sales is going to be last year's operating percentage plus the change divided by 10 to the power 4, which is 53.97%. Since we intend to keep all expenditure numbers in negative, what we would do is in here, rather than simply multiplying it as a percentage of sales, we'll add a minus sign at the beginning. Sales multiplied by the rate gives us the operating cash. The next thing for us to do is calculate Ebitda. We know Ebitda is going to be your cash operating profits. So from gross profit, let's reduce operating cash expenses to arrive at Ebitda. Now we have modeled all the cash expenses for the company, especially in this case where it was not very complicated to do.